precisely 6:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Anjana Durangoda, read by Sabrina Zawahir. The headlines. President warns of measures to designate teaching as an essential service. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena urged all teachers and principals to return to work tomorrow for the sake of the children. The Cabinet of Ministers approved to absorb 8,435 casual employees who are currently working at local authorities to the permanent cadre. State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinha says an agreement reached on finalizing the debt restructuring. Free MOP fertilizer for paddy cultivation for next 2 Maha seasons. Divisional Secretaries of Colombo District directed to submit flood situation reports within 2 weeks. And in world news, deaths mount as Pakistan swelters in heat wave. And in sports, Chris Silverwood resigns as Sri Lanka head coach. Now the local news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the importance of teachers being present in schools during the morning hours to ensure the education of the country's children. He made this observation during a discussion with the Chief Prelate of the Asgiriya chapter, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnana Thiranayaka Thero. The President's Media Division reported that the President warned that if teachers fail to do so, depriving students of their education, steps will be taken to designate teaching as an essential service. President Wickremesinghe visited the Chief Prelate of the Malwatu chapter, Most Venerable Tibbatuwe Sri Sumangala Mahanayaka Thera, and the Chief Prelate of the Asgiriya chapter, Most Venerable Varaguda Sri Gnana Ratnanayaka Thero, during his visit to Kandy and received their blessings this morning. The President engaged in progressive discussions on the country's economic and financial progress and presented the Greater Kandy Urban Plan to the Chief Prelates. Acting Education Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena today urged all teachers and principals to return to work tomorrow for the sake of the children, as most parents cannot afford international or private schools. Addressing the media on the sick leave campaign by teachers, principals, teacher instructors and Pirivena teachers, he mentioned that around 400 international schools in the country are continuing their studies without strikes. The minister said there are 95 private schools in the country and the government pays salaries and provides other privileges for 57 of them. These schools educate about 150,000 children and employ 5,664 teachers. No issues have been reported regarding studies in the remaining government-approved private schools or the 57 private schools. Minister Dr. Gunawardena said in 2022 a cabinet subcommittee was appointed to investigate into the salary anomalies of government workers. According to the committee's report, a 14% salary increment of 3,750 rupees was granted to teachers grades 3-2 in 2022 and a 26% salary increment of 17,720 rupees was granted to teacher grade 1. Considering the economic crisis, an additional 10,000 rupees allowance was granted to the entire government sector, including teachers, in 2023 at the request of the President. The Cabinet of Ministers approved to absorb 8,435 casual employees who are currently working at local authorities to the permanent cadre. These appointments has been given initially on casual, contract, substitute basis to support essential operations of local authorities. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, in the capacity of Minister of State Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Affairs, has presented the paper to the Cabinet. A special discussion was held at the Parliamentary Complex to expedite the process, and as a result this will be effective from next month. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing local news. State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinha says debt restructuring became a reality due to the increased confidence developed over Sri Lanka with the international community. with the restructuring of debt payment is rescheduled until 2043. He further said the interest rates will also be reduced as a result. He said he was pleased to announce the final agreement on debt restructuring between Sri Lanka and the official creditor committee was signed. Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries Mahinda Amaravira announced that a national week for the implementation of the Youth Agri-Entrepreneurship Village Program will be held from 1st to 7th of July. He also stated that the government has decided to provide free MOP fertilizer for paddy cultivation to farmers for the next 2 seasons. Addressing the press briefing, the minister further elaborated that the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantation Industries has launched various programs to attract youth to the agriculture sector, and as part of this effort, 160 villages across the 25 districts in the country have been selected to become youth agri-entrepreneurship villages. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe has instructed the preparation of short-term, medium-term and long-term programs to prevent future floods in the Colombo district. Senior advisor to the President on National Security, Sagala Ratnayaka, said the President, along with political representatives from the affected areas, surveyed the flood-damaged areas in the Colombo district. He further said that it was determined that both natural causes and irregular human activities caused the flooding. Sagala Ratnayaka has also been directed to investigate the causes of the recent flooding in the Colombo district. That came to you in main news.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. A total of 807 suspects, including 3 underworld figures, were arrested within the last 24 hours during island-wide Yuktia operations yesterday. Police said 773 suspects were arrested related to drug offences and 34 suspects who were on the list were referred to criminal divisions. Police headquarters said that 52 kilograms of 616 milligrams of heroin, 162 kilograms of ice and 453 mgs of drugs were seized during the raids conducted under the Yukti operation. That came to you in Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Taking a look at the headlines of the world news. Deaths mount as Pakistan swelters in heat wave. People have been heading to hospitals seeking help. Kenya's president withdraws tax plan after deadly protest. Now the world news in detail. The Edhe ambulance service says it usually takes around 30 to 40 people to Karachi's city morgue daily, but over the last 6 days it has collected some 568 bodies, 141 of them on Tuesday alone. It is too early to say exactly what the cause of the death was in every case. However, the rising numbers of dead came as temperatures in Karachi soared above 40 Celsius, with the high humidity making it feel as hot as 49 Celsius, reports said. Civil Hospital Karachi admitted 267 people with heart stroke between Sunday and Wednesday. Head of the emergency department, Dr. Imran Sarwar Sheikh, said 12 of them died. He further said most of them coming into the hospital were in their 60s or 70s, although there were some around 45 and even a couple in their 20s. Kenya's President William Ruto says he will withdraw a finance bill containing controversial tax hikes after deadly protests which saw Parliament set ablaze on Tuesday. In an address to the nation, he said it was clear that Kenyans want nothing to do with the bill. At least 22 people were killed in Tuesday's protests, according to the state-funded Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Mr. Ruto said he would now enter into dialogue with the young people who were at the forefront of the biggest protests to hit the country since he was elected in 2022. That ends World News. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the World News once again. Deaths mount as Pakistan swelters in heat wave. People have been heading to hospitals seeking help. Kenya's president withdraws tax plan after deadly protest. That ends World News.
Development News.
Vice-Chancellor of Flinders University, Professor Colin J. Sterling, recently visited Port City, Colombo as part of the ongoing discussions regarding the educational investment opportunities available within this visionary master-planned city development. He was accompanied by a delegation of officials including Dr. Harsha Alice, Chairman, Gateway International School Group. The delegation was welcomed by Thosi Aluvihare, Deputy Managing Director, and other representatives from CHEC Port City Colombo Private Limited. Professor Sterling's visit to Port City Colombo was preceded by Flinders University's milestone meeting with President Ranil Wickremesinghe regarding the setup of an offshore international campus, which took place earlier that day. That was Development News.
Moving on with sports news.
Sri Lanka Cricket announced today the head coach of the Sri Lanka national cricket team, Chris Silverwood, has tendered his resignation from the position, citing personal reasons. Silverwood stated being an international coach means long periods away from loved ones. After lengthy conversations with my family and with a heavy heart, I feel it is now time for me to return home and spend some quality time together. He also expressed his gratitude towards the players, coaches, backroom staff and management of Sri Lanka Cricket for their support during his tenure. That was Sports News.
Go ekatiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
SoftLogic Life, the second largest life insurer in the Sri Lankan market, has announced a 6 billion rupees share buyback pending shareholder approvals. The buyback price is 102 rupees and 40 cents per share for up to 58,593,750 shares of the current 375 million shares in issue. The company aims to optimize capital and enhance shareholder value, leveraging its strong financial performance and a favorable low interest rate environment. That was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekatiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news. State Minister for Finance Dr. Ranjit Simbalapetia says that measures are being taken to ban the illegal export of metal, iron-related equipment and scrap in the country, and in the future, all metal exports should be made only on the recommendations of the Ministry of Industry. This was mentioned in a meeting chaired by the Minister. The Minister focused on the exchange loss due to the illegal export of all metal waste, iron-related equipment and scrap materials. That was economic news.
Weather report.
Finally, we take a look at the weather report. Several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamu and northwestern provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts. Strong winds of about 35 to 45 km per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee, Hambantota and Munaragala districts. That was the weather report. Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. President warns of measures to designate teaching as an essential service. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena urged all teachers and principals to return to work tomorrow for the sake of the children. The Cabinet of Ministers approved to absorb 8,435 casual employees who are currently working at local authorities to the permanent cadre. State Finance Minister Shayan Singh says an agreement reached on finalizing the debt restructuring. Free MOP fertilizer for paddy cultivation for next 2 Maha seasons. Divisional Secretaries of Colombo District directed to submit flood situation reports within 2 weeks. With that, we conclude the news, and over to my friend and certainly yours, who's all geared up to keep you entertained with a wonderful collection of music indeed. Over to you, Mario.